Hi! I think a year ago I said it was unlikely that I would do this again, but here we are! I was one of 50 selected artists doing daily assignments for 30 days. How it worked was that there were eliminations throughout based on how well we did, until a winner remained. For anyone unaware, this is Chroma Corps. It's run by Cynic's Design, and this is the 4th year that I've done this now. 2 of those years I was just following along doing the assignments, and in 2023 I was competing. Made it to the finalist phase but didn't win. I have a video, I think, on each of those years, so it's all cataloged. So the contest starts with an entry phase. You have about a week to design and submit a character. Last year the main character design I did was this one, Clicks, and I was quite happy with this, kind of sad that I didn't get to compete with it. And I like to bring back characters one more time before I retire them. So here is the updated design. I focused on doing more with the posing and expressions. It was tricky to try to improve on something that I'm already still pretty happy with. I don't hate what I did last year, but I think I was at least able to improve on it even just slightly. And I also made a little chibi sketch for fun, and this lo-fi animation, which I have uploaded unlisted, so if you want to go see that, I'll have the link in the description, I guess. This year, previous winners were invited to help with the judging and pick their top 2 from the entries, and Nikiti-san is who selected me to compete. So then, we moved on to the 30 days of 30 assignments. How that worked was every day we would submit our art for the assignment, then roughly the top half would get 1 point, and the top several would get 2 points. Every about 5-ish days, everyone in the lower half of total points would be eliminated, and then everyone else would continue forward with their scores reset to 0. Every Chroma Corps year has a different theme, and this year was Racing Grand Prix themed, so these 5-ish day periods were called tracks. You can picture each day, each assignment being a lap around the track, and the full 30 days consisted of 5 tracks. Did that make any sense? I sure hope so. If not, just go with it. Day 1 was Fan Art Day. I lied, there was actually 46 competitors initially selected, and today our assignment was to make art of an entry phase character from someone who didn't get selected, and if our art was in the top 4, that person would be brought into the contest. I chose this character by Overgang, and I had already kind of guessed, based on previous years, that Fan Art Day would be happening, so I already had the idea to make a racing game character select. So on the right I have portraits of already selected racers, and then Overgang's character is like a new unlocked one. There weren't any points given out on this first day. That would start on day 2, which I do like actually. It's kind of a nice way to ease into something that can be a bit intimidating at the start. I was feeling a bit rusty, so it really helped. And I sadly didn't bring Overgang into the contest, but I still think this was a good first piece. Assignment number 2 was the Eudralius? I don't know how to say that actually. The Cosmic Tree. Every track would include one environment assignment, which was the place that these imaginary racetracks existed. I had pretty recently drawn a bunch of trees for my tree tutorial, so I felt at least prepared for that aspect, but otherwise I really wasn't sure where I wanted to take this. I started fiddling around with tree shapes. I didn't feel great about the top panel of my rough thumbnail painting, so I, for the most part, ignored it and just started putting down shapes and colors without any plan or direction, kind of automatic drawing style. I was so incredibly zoned out for hours, late at night of course, and so this is a tree from my deepest subconscious. I actually like it. I didn't think that would actually work out well, but it did. I got 1 point. Day 3 was a creature design assignment, Moosh Frog, a creature that is part mushroom and part frog. My idea was pretty wacky. I kind of drew it as a joke idea, but then I realized that I liked it, and it was way more fun and interesting than any other ideas I had. I feel like I was able to do a lot in this day compared to past years. A year ago, I probably would have made this painted illustration, and that would have been it. I think the incentive of competing helps me work a lot faster, to be honest, and I got 1 point. Assignment number 4, Resource Mining Spaceship. So, industrial design is probably my weakest area. It's really not my thing, but I did my best anyways. I want to like industrial design, and I feel like if I could just do well, be told I did a good job, get a point, maybe it would click for me and I would start liking it more. I didn't get a point, but I figured there's usually just maybe a couple industrial assignments every Chroma Corps. So doing one on day 4 means we're probably getting it out of the way early, you know? Surely. Also, I needed to come up with something for this mining spaceship to mine, and I said, I know, chromite, 'cause Chroma Corps. And apparently that's already a thing, but I kept it anyways. Assignment 5 was our first character design, Insectoid Mad Scientist. I went with a moth-based character after I realized the antenna could be bushy eyebrows. I don't know why, but I wasn't really feeling it this day, my process was messy, and overall, I feel kinda neutral about this one. I got 0 points. So that concludes the first track. I ended with 2 points, which was actually just enough to move on. If I hadn't earned one of those points on day 2 and 3, I would have been out right here. And 17 people were eliminated. Here is the scoreboard that was used for the contest. I think it was made by Discord username Chipnix. I'll be showing it every once in a while. So then, those of us that survived went on to track 2. Day 6 was our environment, Savory Valley. I like doing environments a lot for some reason, even though they're not really something I do more than anything else. Not really sure why. Making these rocks and cliffs look like meat was pretty fun. One of the ways I did that was with subsurface scattering, having light go through and creating that redness on edges. It makes it look more like flesh than normal rock. And I had enough time to do a few comic panel style illustrations to show a bit more of the characters I designed for the scene and what this place is like. On this assignment, I got 1 point. Day 7, 1 week in, was Unexpected Corgi. I was excited to have an illustration prompt, along with environments. I think those are my favorite, and I somehow landed on the Unexpected Corgi showing up to this date after probably posing online as a normal guy, lying about his height of course, although he does look pretty polite. I tried a daylight version first when I was thumbnailing, but it didn't have the right date feel, kind of too morning-ish looking. And I built the restaurant environment in Blender, which allowed me to pick the angle and get my perspective really accurate. Then I pretty much entirely painted over this. The characters I put in the background belong to the other competitors, and Clix is also sitting back there. I put a lot of detail there before realizing that only having one visible human face in the scene is a little bit distracting, so I decided that blurring was the best option, even though that meant sacrificing a lot of that detail. Oh well. I got 2 points. My first 2-pointer. I'm already starting to lose my voice. This is what happens when you spend a month drawing instead of talking to people. Okay, day 8. Spear of Mistletoe. You would kind of expect a spear design in this category of Christmas plants to be a holly spear, because holly has all of these sharp edges, and mistletoe has round berries, round leaves, so this was an interesting challenge. A lot of us didn't actually know what mistletoe looked like before this, and apparently it's a parasite for trees, I learned, so I decided that it would be a weapon for killing tree monsters, and I enjoyed doing all of these little details on the blade. That was fun. I did not get any points for this one though. It's funny and tragic. How cynics would judge every day is he would put all of our art into a pure ref board and then start dragging things up and down based on how he felt about it. And there's just something so sad about watching your art get dragged down on the pure ref board. No, that's my baby. My day's work. Well, you can't get them all, I guess. Only half of us can get a point, so can't expect it every day. Assignment 9 was Glacial Restaurant. Somehow, after some sketching, I landed on the idea of putting a kitchen in the mouth of a frozen monster. I imagine that the oven is slowly melting away the ice, so eat at this restaurant at your own risk. I came up with the name for my restaurant, The Big Gulp. I thought it was a funny original name with multiple meanings, but apparently it's also a 7-Eleven drink, I was told, but I kept it anyways. Maybe that just makes it funnier. Oh, and I got 1 point. Almost forgot to say. Day 10 was Spaghetti Yeti. I now had enough points to be safe to move on to the next track, but not enough points that it was worth putting in a crazy amount of effort. The incentive to keep earning points after you reach a spot like this was that whoever ended a track with the most points would, instead of fully restarting at 0, they would have 1 point at the start of the next track. But I also wasn't really in a place to get that. So I just kind of focused on something simple and that I would enjoy doing. Wouldn't take me the entire day. My Spaghetti Yeti is like a porcupine. He can cook and uncook himself at will. The uncooked spaghetti is for self-defense, and I can't say I've ever rendered spaghetti before, so it was a strange and fun challenge to paint something like this and not make it look like hair. Quite fun. I would render spaghetti again, whatever reason I can find to do that. Anyways, this was a 0-point day, and actually we had thought that the track would be ending on the Spaghetti Yeti, but there was a surprise bonus day with fewer points given out. It was a chance for people who were just out of reach of moving on to have a chance to save themselves. So I had another chill day that I didn't expect to. I really didn't have the energy or any exciting ideas for this one, so I took it easy again, even easier, just did some quick drawings, and then called it a day. 0 points. So that is the end of track 2. I finished with 4 points, and everyone that had 2 points or lower were killed by cynics. Brutal. Okay, track 3. Day 12 was the Cosmic Carnival. As usual, starting the new track with the environment it's meant to take place in. I like starting with a very rough thumbnail painting for complex things like this. It gives me a clear direction for my color, value, and the general composition early on, and I'm taking the strategy of putting a lot of effort into the first day. Environments are what I seem to be most likely to get points on, and it's nice to get points as early as possible so that I'm less likely to need to be stressed about it later on in the track. I realized that putting the environment on a curving plane was a bit ambitious, but it helped to draw boxes and squares that I used as guidelines to build everything on top of. And for this one, I got my second 2 points. A good start to what was the longest track. This one was, I think, 8 days. Assignment 13 was RoboClown Manufacturing Unit. So another industrial assignment, but that's okay. It's the second one, probably the last one, so I can be in the clear after this. I was confused when I read this at first. It's not designing a robot clown, but the machine that makes them. I had a tricky time, of course, but it did help to think of the shapes as not very different from how I would go about drawing a tree, having chunks winding around together, and the arms on the bottom are kind of like roots. What got me most tripped up though was the arms and the joints specifically. Cynics could tell. He can see my weaknesses. He knows what good joints are supposed to look like, and I don't. I don't know what I'm doing. No points. And you'll start to notice that the number of competitors that I have down there is going to start dropping a bit. That is because at this point, it's about halfway through. The smart people are realizing that the format of this year is quite difficult. Most years it's not judged this way, and so far, even from the beginning, it's been pretty intense. The quality required, the amount of effort that you have to submit every day is definitely more than previous years. And honestly, if you're going to drop out, halfway is the point to do it. You're not too far in yet. So the wisest of us dipped. Day 14, now 2 weeks in and almost halfway through, the assignment was Hermetic Alchemist. I had to do some Wikipedia reading to understand what this should be. I've never heard of Hermeticism. I gave my character a hat that is meant to look like the sun, and the potion bottles could be like planets orbiting around it. The process I used for rendering this character felt a lot better compared to what I did on day 1. I think that's my favorite part of the result here, is just how I painted it. Instead of trying to paint over and cover up my lines, I used them as just a reference and then removed them. And I think the rendering is my favorite part of how this turned out, to be honest. For this, I got 1 point. Day 15 was Abstract Day. Thank you, Cynics, for putting Abstract Day exactly halfway through and halfway through the most difficult long track. It's hard to call it a break day, but it's a break from doing crazy concepting. You just need to make something that looks visually appealing. Not as much you have to consider. Like in the past couple years, I built something pretty random in 3D to give myself a starting point, but this time I barely kept anything from that. It changed a lot. I focused on including as many uneven ratios as I could think of, like uneven light to dark, saturation to desaturation, and round to angular. That's really the key for making anything look visually appealing. Not splitting things 50-50 is a pretty guaranteed way to make something just look nice. Design theory. Woo. Somehow in my random painting, I somehow started making circles out of these curves that were appearing as I painted, and by the end I had these 3 circles that are just sort of hidden there in the shapes. I think that's kind of fun. It's hard for me to tell how obvious it is, because I'm the one who put them there. Maybe it's like a little Easter egg. And I got 1 point. I'm gonna rest my voice, I think. Well, I'll record the other half of this another time. Goodbye. Okay, it's been 3 days. Where were we? Day 16. Divine Predator. I associate the word divine with really grand beauty and intelligence, so that's where the human-like mask and the flowing white hair comes in. But then the word predator, I feel like, is very animal, so the other aspects of the design, I went for something that just looks like it would hunt you down and eat you. Cynics at least liked my little guy here, who is risking his life to provide scale reference, but no points on this one. Day 17. Oh gosh. The stars in their sockets burn strangely. The night is crossed by a cold wind. Some of the racers, or what abstracted forms they may have taken, surround a dying fire of sorts, where their last hopes lie smoldering as embers. What will they do now? So I guess we got lost from the cosmic carnival and are trapped in abstract land. I ran with the idea of our characters becoming abstract in some way. I swapped our heads and bodies to make goofy looking combinations, and because of the odd number of people remaining now, I ended up with DatFam's character as the odd one out. But then I realized that he didn't need a body and could be the dying fire mentioned in the assignment description. I based the environment they're in on my abstract piece, and I also included the Divine Predator hunting us down in the background. I got 1 point. Assignment 18 was a character design, the Dream Police. I felt uninterested in any of the ideas I was coming up with until I remembered that an animal can technically be a character, so long as they are an individual with their own name and personality. So I made this Dream Police canine, and his name is Todd. My premise is that he saves people from their nightmares by simply being the greater nightmare, and I made a few comic panels to show him on the job. Todd did not receive any points, justice for Todd, and that left me in a pretty risky situation for the last day of the track. On day 19, the assignment was Lightning Energy Boost, so based on the math, I almost certainly needed to get a point on this one if I was going to move on. After so many days of just spending the entire day on these, I was pretty tired, so I came up with an idea that I felt like I could execute pretty quickly, but also felt creative and fun. I like my logo design a lot, where it's cotton candy and a storm cloud at the same time. The cone is the lightning bolt. So I turned this in early and then just sat back and figured I'd let whatever happen happen. As much as I wanted to move on to the next track, I really needed the break regardless, I think. And I did get my 1 point I needed, so this was another track where I just barely made it through. The 4 people with 4 points or less were eliminated, leaving now just 13 people for the second to last track. So here is track 4. Day 20 was our environment, Inverted Ocean. Again, I attempted a strong start on the beginning environment, and I don't use this too often in my process, but I found it useful to photo bash my references together into a thumbnail that I could use for reference and color picking from. That's something I'm going to be using a lot more, and I love having a part of my process where I can just turn off my brain, get lost in a bunch of little details while I watch YouTube or something. And that's what I did for these schools of birds. It's the sort of thing that other people would find tedious, but I don't. It's fun. On this, I got 1 point. Assignment 21, we designed a house elf pit crew for our racer. I had imagined beforehand that Clix's pit crew would just be her ravens, but I couldn't do that because this was a creature design assignment, so I had to make something new. I instead just gave my house elves some raven features, and I spent so many hours, just sketching until I felt I had crafted the perfect little freak. I really need to get better at concepting quickly. I feel like I can get to an idea I like, but it takes me so long. Other people are probably jumping straight into their final drawing, and here I am. I had made a rough motorcycle design for clicks before the assignment started. I figured it might be useful, and today it was. Not a necessary inclusion, but it was nice to have something for my little guys to play off of. I could show their poor attempt at doing their job, and clicks not having it. Sorry not sorry for giving you such an awful pick crew. They got 1 point, so they aren't completely useless. Day 22 was, oh no, another industrial day. How could this happen? This time a reverse submarine. So a submarine that is for taking people or creatures from the deep depths of the ocean out of the water, maybe up on land, in the sky, any way we wanted to interpret that. This time I decided I will take everything that Cynic said was weak about my previous 2 industrial assignments and just completely avoid trying those things. So that meant no angular shapes like I had in my mining spaceship, and no visible joints like in my clown manufacturing unit. I will leave nothing for him to not like. But he still found something. I think he wanted more detail. But he did seem to like it more than the other ones, so we're getting closer. Not close enough to get a point though. Day 23 was movie poster day. We were assigned to design a movie poster for a movie titled Dino Shark. My idea for the poster was to make it look like a Jaws type movie poster, but then you pay closer attention and realize that the monster is actually above the water and a reflection. The inclusion of the people in the boat pointing and reacting to something above them makes that a bit more clear. Without that, I don't think this idea would come across at all. I wanted to do something fun with the title lettering, and my first idea was for it to be made out of seafoam, but it being blood turned out to be a necessary addition for it to be legible and pop, and as a bonus, makes it extra sinister. This earned 1 point. Assignment 24, an outfit design inspired by this picture. I am a little bit oblivious when it comes to fashion. I just wear like jeans and a t-shirt every day. Whenever I need to buy a new pair of shoes, I just buy the same pair of navy blue Converse. So with that in mind, I decided that it would be best to do something more wild and creative than something closer to normal attire. And of course, that meant doing Met Gala inspired outfits. No one else went this direction, shocker. My models are the characters belonging to Funky Pepe and Kana. And on this day, I was very much on the line for judging. I just barely got 1 point. I almost didn't. Day 25, nearing the end now, was the last day of this track, a character design, Octopus Warrior. So just my luck again, I needed 1 more point to move on to the next track. And funny enough, it worked out that there was only 1 person that was safe to move on, and there was a 6-way tie for second place. So even though me and these 5 other people were in the second place spot, we weren't safe. We actually considered that if the 6 of us did very poorly and everyone else did better than us, the math could work out that the cutoff would be a point lower and we would all move forward. And we did consider this. I'm not the only one who is incredibly tired. But first off, it would be a bit risky, and I suppose it would be an injustice to the prompt, so we still all did our best. But I again did my usual in this situation, where I aimed to do something that I could do quickly, and specifically on this day I focused on my strengths. I feel like as a concept artist, I am a lot weaker than the other people here, but as an illustrator, I stand out a bit more. So I focused on doing a more splash art type illustration over pure concept design with a character standing on a blank background. I feel like maybe I haven't been doing that enough in these past assignments, and I was able to finish with time to spare, so I turned it in, and then just hoped for the best. And I did get the point I needed. So that's the end of track 4. 5 people were eliminated, which meant only 7 remaining. So now we're at track 5, the final track. Day 26 was Origami City. I knew that if I didn't do well on the environment, my chance of winning would be very low, so I was very focused. I of course looked at Spider-Verse cityscapes for inspiration, and painted a basic city thumbnail painting as a starting point. This was good perspective practice, and I of course aimed to make everything look like it was made out of paper. Now with only 7 people, it's easier to include all of these characters in the assignment, so everyone is here, ready to start the final track. Out of the 7 of us, now only 1 person gets 2 points each day, and I fortunately was able to take the win on this day. Moving on to day 27, the assignment was the Great Crash. So apparently we have crashed our vehicles on the racetrack, and extra description for this mentioned that it could be a crash involving 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions, so I decided to include that somewhat. My explosion from the crash is split into different styles and mediums. One is my normal style, one is pixel, there's a watercolor traditional pen type style, a photo bashed one, which was very fun to do, and a cartoon one. I had other ideas like one could be 3D modeled, or one could be actually drawn traditionally, but those ideas, as fun as they would be, it would be difficult to line everything up properly, and I also wanted the unifying thing between the sections to be the colors and values, so with that in mind, I just stuck with these things, what was manageable to do in a day, and canonically, our racing vehicles were apparently destroyed in this crash, so that motorcycle that I included in one assignment is gone forever, it exploded. I did not get a point on this day, but I still like my concept and the execution of it that I was able to pull off in a day. Assignment 28 was a pretty unique one. Last year we had an audio prompt where we based our art off of a piece of music, and this was that again. This time it sounded pretty sinister and ominous. The title, which I don't think mattered too much, was What Have I Done? I don't know why, but on this day specifically, I felt so stuck idea-wise. I have my day planned out where I aim to have certain things done by certain times, and I started to worry quite a bit after I passed the point where I should have a finished plan. Definitely something like this that's so open to interpretation makes the idea part trickier, but I was able to eventually land on an idea. I went with this dungeon lab setting where someone has activated these stone beings by experimenting on a glowing orb. For this one, I used a lot more line detail than I often use. I think for a setting with so much brick and stone, it works a bit better, but again, earning no points. And, to make matters even better, assignment 29 was another and the actual final industrial assignment, designing a racing vehicle. But there was a bit more to this. We had to pick someone following along with the contest to join in as a guest. So we designed a racing vehicle for their character, and they designed a new racing vehicle for our character, on account of how a couple days ago ours all blew up. My guest partner for this was my friend Double, who did actually win Chroma Corps a couple years ago, but this was within the rules. We were allowed to have a winner as our guest. This was his character this year. It's a locust-themed character, so I decided that a motorcycle with locust wings was the way to go. And so how the judging worked today was that Cynics did the judging of the 7 competitors, and then separately and in the same way judged the guests. 3 points were given to the competitors, and 3 points were given to the guests. And if our guest earned a point, that point would be given over to us. So that's a lot of power to the guests and pressure, I feel like. Here's what Double made, which, holy cow, this is so good. Such a massive upgrade from that sad little motorcycle. It's so great, it's almost like he won Chroma Corps or something. I love the addition of the gloves and goggles. There's so much personality in this. And here's what I ended up with. Again, doing my very best. I feel like I at least didn't struggle with this one as much as I did with other industrial assignments, which is good. And so, I did not earn a point, but Double earned a point. So I finally got that industrial design point that I so desperately wanted. Never mind the fact that it was earned for me. Thank you, Double. Oh my gosh. You should go follow him. Here's his horrifying Instagram handle. Just keep typing Double until you find him. But yeah, even though I technically never earned that industrial design point, I do feel like I got more confident with it, and I almost got a point actually. I wasn't immediately moved down like in previous days, and Cynics actually liked it. Maybe improving and becoming a better artist was the point that I was after all along. So that brings us to day 30, the final day. The prompt was photo finish, nothing too specific, basically just making it to the end of the race. There were more points given out on this day than previous. Basically, first place would get 3 points, second place would get 2 points, and so on. And how it worked out was I was basically only guaranteed to be a winner if I got first place on this day, so I had to try. Because the environments were my favorite part of this year, I decided to make that a pretty big focus. I showed the 5 different locations, including a lot of other details in each, like my mining spaceship, the abstract dimension, and the explosion from the Great Crash. I, to be honest, really took more of a nap than actually slept on this day, and maybe that wasn't the best idea in hindsight because I feel like that put me over the edge and I was feeling pretty sick. I really worried that because of that I wouldn't be able to get something done that I was happy with, but I pulled through, and submitting this, the last assignment, and then just sitting back felt so good. A freedom I hadn't had for 30 days. Of course, even though I spent the entire day on this, put everything I had into it, unsurprisingly, the other competitors tried too, on the last day, who knew? So I wasn't able to get one of the winning spots. The final winners of Chroma Corps 25 are Funky Pepe and Voland, who both tied at 7 points, and I ended up in a 3-way tie for second. So as, maybe a bit disappointing as it is to be so close but not make it, second place does sound pretty good too. As I talk a bit more and wrap things up, I'm gonna let a slideshow play showing one thing I liked from each of the other competitors. This year was definitely a huge challenge. Comparing this to competing in 2023 while having a full-time job, I would say this was harder without question. So pat on the back to all of these people. If you see anything here that you like, maybe go follow that person, check out what else they've made. All very good artists, whether they got out on the first track or made it to the last. Even though I was kind of suffering through this one a little bit, I am really happy with a lot of what I've made, and I feel like a better artist than I was at the start. It's hard not to after doing something like this. You would think I might come out of this wanting to do anything but draw in the near future, but this really did motivate me to practice more. You become so aware of your weaknesses when they're put to the test, and so now I know exactly what I want to be working on for the next year. Mostly concepting and drawing skills. I would love to get to the point where concepting doesn't feel like an excruciating uphill battle. Same as I said last year, I really don't know if I'll get the chance to compete again, whether it be because I'm just not available, or it's also a matter of if I even get picked to be in the contest. There's only so many of these left, but we will have to see. I would love to try one more time when I feel ready, but it's not going to be against 50 people. I would like to compete in a normal year where there's like 18 people. I think that would be a bit more manageable. Thank you so much to everyone who was rooting for me, and also to everyone who included clicks in their art during this month. That was so fun to see, and I wish I was able to give each one more appreciation. I think clicks can be retired happily now. And of course, thank you Cynics for again hosting this event. It's weird to think about how much this has potentially altered the course of my life. If my YouTube recommended hadn't given me the announcement of the contest in 2022, and I hadn't clicked on it, there are so many people I never would have met, wouldn't have gotten the chance to be friends with, and I think my art today would be a lot worse. For most of the year I have trouble finding time to make my own art for my portfolio, so Chroma Corps has been my way of speedrunning my portfolio and my art improvement. As a final note, I am working on setting up Patreon. I was hoping to have that done and ready to launch today, but I'm not quite ready yet. I think in a couple weeks I'll have a $2 tier available, and that'll come with access to a Discord server and a few other small resources. So if you're interested, keep an eye out, and I'll be sure to put a link here once it's ready. I'm pretty sure that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much for watching what is probably my longest video, and if you'd like to see more of this, here are my past 2 videos doing the same thing. Okay, bye!